The old man's hands, gnarled and scarred, trembled slightly as they reached for the worn leather satchel. 50 years. 50 years he'd carried this weight, this truth, this damnation. The satchel wasn't much to look at. Faded brown, scuffed at the corners, smelling faintly of old paper and the unique metallic scent of forgotten ordnance. But inside, it held a universe of shadows, of lies, of the impossible. Art Vance, special officer, retired. Or rather, erased. That's what they'd tried to do. His name, his unit, the entire bloody campaign, scrubbed cleaner than a surgeon's table. He'd watched the official records burn, had heard the lies spun on national television, had seen the families of his fallen brothers accept medals for training accidents. Each time a piece of him died again. Each time the satchel grew heavier. Tonight, the weight was finally coming off. He sat at his kitchen table, the only light a single bare bulb hanging above. Outside, the Arizona desert night was a velvet black, punctuated by the distant mournful howl of a coyote. Inside, the silence was broken only by the creak of old bones and the soft rasp of his breath. His eyes, still sharp behind a web of wrinkles, scanned the items he carefully laid out. A faded photograph of a dozen young men, grim and determined, standing in front of a nameless cargo plane. A dog tag, scratched and bent, bearing the name Miller J. And finally, the core of it all, a series of small leather-bound notebooks, their covers brittle with age, pages filled with his own hurried script, and the stark, coded reports that would shatter decades of official deceit. He picked up the first notebook, Operation Chimera. The title alone still tasted like ash. He ran a thumb over the worn cover, the ghost of sweat and gunpowder almost palpable. It was time. Time for the truth to stand on its own 2 feet, no matter how ugly. Time for the ghosts to finally get their names back. It was 1973. Vietnam was winding down, or so the papers claimed. For men like Art Vance, a 25-year-old special forces operator with 3 tours under his belt, winding down meant a different kind of war was just beginning. He was pulled from a debriefing in Okinawa, flown stateside on a black flight, and dropped into a windowless office in a building that officially didn't exist, somewhere in the bowels of Langley. Colonel Elias Thorne sat across from him, a man whose eyes held the cold, calculating glint of a predator. Thorne had a reputation, ruthless, brilliant, and utterly devoid of anything resembling a moral compass. He was the kind of officer who would sacrifice his own mother if it meant securing the objective. Art respected that in a twisted way. It meant Thorne was predictable. Dangerous, but predictable. "Vance," Thorne began, his voice a low growl. "Your file says you're good. More than good. It says you can disappear. It says you can operate without orders, without backup, and without leaving a trace." Art just stared. He'd learned long ago that in rooms like this, silence was a weapon. Thorne leaned forward, placing a thick, unmarked manila folder on the desk. "It also says you're a ghost. No family, no close ties. Your paper trail ends the moment you deploy. That makes you perfect for something off-book." Art felt a familiar chill. Off-book, in Thorne's lexicon, meant operating outside the Geneva Conventions, outside the chain of command, outside humanity itself. "What kind of off-book, Colonel?" Thorne slid the folder across. Inside, there were no schematics, no mission parameters. Just a single photograph, a grainy aerial shot of a dense jungle canopy, somewhere in Southeast Asia, far from the recognized battlegrounds. And a single name, typewritten beneath it, Project Chimera. "A project that never happened," Thorne stated, his gaze unwavering. "A unit that never existed. A mission that will be denied by every layer of government, from the president down to the lowest-ranking desk jockey. If you're caught, Vance, you're on your own. There will be no rescue, no recognition, no body bag. You will simply cease to have ever been." Art picked up the photo. The jungle looked ancient, primordial, a place where secrets could be swallowed whole and never spat out. "And the objective, Colonel?" "Eliminate a growing threat," Thorne replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "A conglomerate of rogue operatives, disgruntled scientists, and former GRU commandos. They've established a base of operations. They're developing something that could shift the global balance of power, not just militarily, but fundamentally. We can't allow it to reach fruition." "And if we fail?" Art asked, already knowing the answer. "Failure is not an option," Thorne said simply. "But if by some miracle you do, the world will never know you tried. Your team will be martyrs to a cause no one will acknowledge." Art considered it. The risks were astronomical. The potential for a quick, anonymous death was almost guaranteed. But the alternative, going back to routine deployments, fighting a war he no longer believed in, felt far more chilling. He looked at Thorne. Who else is on this non-existent team? The best of the best, Thorne assured him. Men like you, ghosts, every one of them. You'll meet them in 2 days. Be at the abandoned hangar at Fort Bragg, 0300. Don't be late. And don't bring anything that connects you to your past life. From the moment you step into that hangar, Arthur Vance dies. Only Chimera 6 remains. Art nodded. He'd died before. He could do it again. Fort Bragg at 300 was a different world. The abandoned hangar, a hulking silhouette against the pre-dawn sky, felt less like a training facility and more like a mausoleum. Inside, under the glow of portable work lamps, a dozen men stood in various states of readiness, their faces hardened, their eyes holding that familiar 1,000-yard stare. Art recognized the type: operators from Delta, SEALs, Force Recon Marines, even a couple of ex-CIA SAD paramilitary officers. Each one a living legend in their respective fields, each one looking like a man who had seen too much and was ready to see more. They were a motley crew, hand-picked for their unique skills and, more importantly, their expendability. Thorne had ensured that. There was Miller, a giant of a man with a quiet demeanor and an almost supernatural ability with a sniper rifle. Petrov, a former Spetsnaz defector with a grim sense of humor and an encyclopedic knowledge of Soviet weaponry. Chen, a demolitions expert whose quiet intensity could make C4 sing. And Lena, a former NSA cryptanalyst and communications specialist whose presence in such a male-dominated, brutal environment was a testament to her sheer will and intellect. She was an anomaly, but one Thorne vouched for personally. A grizzled, one-eyed man named Sergeant Major Rex Boomer Jenkins, a legendary figure from Vietnam, who'd apparently been pulled out of retirement for this, barked orders. "Listen up, ghosts. My name is Boomer. You call me Sergeant Major. You don't like it, you can run. You don't run fast enough, I'll put a bullet in your kneecap and watch you bleed out. Any questions?" Silence. "Good," Boomer grunted. "Because where we're going, there won't be any questions, only answers. And those answers will be written in blood." The next few weeks were a blur of intense training. They didn't learn how to fight. They already knew that. They learned how to fight as a single, seamless entity. They drilled on infiltration techniques, close-quarters combat scenarios, target identification, and exfiltration protocols. Every contingency was practiced until it became second nature. They learned to communicate with glances, with subtle hand signals, with the rhythm of their breathing. Art found himself gravitating towards Lena. She wasn't a combat soldier, but her mind was a weapon of its own. She could crack any code, bypass any security system, and untangle any encrypted message. Her eyes, though, held a quiet intensity, a reflection of the same burdens they all carried. One night, while reviewing satellite imagery of their target zone, Art saw her staring at a photo of a young girl on her comms tablet. "Your daughter?" he asked, his voice low. Lena flinched, quickly tucking the tablet away. "Niece," she corrected, her voice tight. "She thinks I'm on a long assignment overseas. My sister thinks I'm dead." Art understood. They all had their stories, their reasons for taking this path into the shadows. For some, it was patriotism. For others, a sense of duty. For most, like Art, it was a need to disappear, to outrun the demons that chased them from the battlefields. And for Lena, it was clearly a sacrifice made for a greater, unspoken cause. "We all have our ghosts, Lena," Art said, looking at the jungle canopy on the screen. "Out there, we become them." She met his gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Then let's hope we haunt the right people." The journey to the target zone was long, arduous, and completely deniable. They flew on unmarked planes, then transferred to a clandestine submarine, and finally deployed in a Zodiac boat under the cover of a moonless night. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of ancient earth. The jungle swallowed them whole the moment their boots touched the shore. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the primary facility, gather intelligence on the device Thorne had mentioned, neutralize key personnel, and if necessary, destroy the facility and everything in it. No prisoners, no witnesses, just clean surgical eradication. Art, as Chimera 6, was the team leader. Miller provided overwatch from a distant ridge, his sniper rifle a silent promise of death. Petrov and Chen were the vanguard, moving with a predatory grace through the dense foliage, mapping patrol routes and setting up diversionary charges. Lena, positioned at a secure comms point, was their eyes and ears, intercepting enemy communications and feeding them real-time intelligence. The target facility was deep within the jungle, a sprawling complex that had clearly been built in stages, meticulously camouflaged. It hummed with a low, almost organic energy, a testament to the advanced technology Thorne had warned them about. Their first contact came on day 3, a routine patrol of 6 heavily armed mercenaries, speaking a mix of Russian and a local dialect, stumbled upon Petrov and Chen's position. The engagement was swift, brutal, and silent. Petrov used his knife with chilling efficiency, a blur of motion in the dim light. Chen, despite his demolition specialty, was a terrifyingly effective close-quarters combatant. The bodies were dragged into the undergrowth, stripped of their gear, and left to rot. No trace. Chimera 6 to all units, Art whispered into his comms. Contact made, 6 hostiles neutralized. Proceed with caution. They know something is wrong. Lena's voice crackled back, calm despite the circumstances. Affirmative 6. Intercepted chatter indicates increased security patrols in Sector Gamma. They're on high alert. Something is happening inside. That night, under a sky choked with stars, Art gathered his team. They're tightening the noose, that means we're close. We hit the perimeter tomorrow night. Chen, prepare your charges. Petrov, you're on lead. Miller, I need you to own the high ground. Lena, be ready to blind them. Chapter 4. Infiltration. The night they moved was perfect for their purpose. A torrential downpour, masking their movements, muffling any sound. The jungle became a chaotic symphony of dripping water and rustling leaves, a natural cover for the unseen predators that were the ghosts of Chimera. Chen placed his charges with silent precision, targeting key security cameras and patrol lights. At Art's signal, a series of muffled explosions plunged a section of the perimeter into darkness, creating a temporary, crucial breach. Petrov, like a phantom, slipped through the wire, followed by Art and the rest of the assault team. Inside, the facility was a maze of corrugated metal buildings, prefab barracks, and reinforced concrete bunkers. Guards moved with a disciplined alertness, their weapons at the ready. But they were looking for an external threat, not an internal one. Their objective was the main research lab, identified by Lena's intelligence as the heart of the project. They moved through the shadows, a well-oiled machine of death. A guard rounded a corner, his rifle slung carelessly. Petrov was on him in an instant, a hand over his mouth, a quick snap of the neck. Silent, efficient. They reached the exterior wall of the main lab. It was heavily reinforced, a steel barrier designed to withstand direct assault. But Chen had a different plan. He produced a specialized thermal torch, its beam focused and intense. In minutes, a circular cut began to appear in the thick metal, the smell of burning steel filling the air. As the circular piece of steel was carefully removed, revealing a dark aperture, Lena's voice came through their comms, urgent. 6, they're moving something, large security detail converging on the lab's main entrance. Looks like they're preparing for extraction of a critical asset. Art swore under his breath. They were too late or just in time. New orders, immediate entry, stop that extraction. Whatever they're moving, we secure it. Petrov, you're first. Move. Petrov slid through the opening, his AK-47 already scanning the interior. Art followed, his M16 on full auto, ready for the firestorm he knew was coming. Inside, the lab was chaotic. Scientists in white coats were frantically packing equipment, while a squad of heavily armed GRU commandos formed a protective barrier around a large cylindrical containment unit on a wheeled platform. Freeze, Art bellowed, but his words were lost in the sudden eruption of gunfire. The fight was brutal. The GRU commandos were well-trained, disciplined, and clearly knew the stakes. But the ghosts were faster, more agile, and driven by a desperate need to complete their mission. Petrov moved like a whirlwind, his rifle spitting fire, taking down 3 men before they could even react. Chen emptied a magazine into a flanking position, cutting down another 2. Art engaged the lead commando in a vicious hand-to-hand struggle, his rifle lost in the melee. He blocked a knife thrust, parried a punch, and finally drove his elbow into the commando's throat, dropping him. He grabbed a fallen rifle, looking for the target. The containment unit. It pulsed with a faint internal light, and emanating from it was a low, resonant hum that made the very air vibrate. It was bigger than they'd anticipated, and the implications of its existence sent a cold dread through Art. Miller's voice, calm and detached, echoed in their ears from his distant perch. 6, 3 hostiles down in the courtyard, heading for the lab entrance. Engaging. A moment later, the distinct crack of his sniper rifle punctuated the din of the firefight. One of the scientists, a portly man with wide, terrified eyes, made a break for a side door, clutching a data chip. Art saw him, took aim, but a commando suddenly burst from a darkened corner, firing wildly. Art dove for cover, the bullets chewing concrete where his head had been. "Lena, can you get us a schematic of this thing?" Art yelled, pointing at the containment unit. "What the hell is in it?" "Working on it, 6," her voice replied, strained. "Heavy encryption, but preliminary scans show an energy signature unlike anything I've ever seen, fluctuating, highly unstable, and biological components." Biological components. The words hung in the air, a chilling revelation. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a living weapon. The commandos were being systematically cut down, their numbers dwindling. But their sacrifice was buying time. Time for the remaining scientists to secure their data. Time for the unit to be moved closer to an evacuation point. "Miller, focus fire on the unit's supports. Disable it, don't destroy it," Art barked. He knew they couldn't risk detonating whatever was inside. From his distant position, Miller shifted his aim. 3 precise shots rang out, each one striking a structural support on the wheeled platform. The unit groaned, tilting dangerously. The remaining commandos redoubled their efforts, desperately trying to stabilize it. Art saw his chance. He sprinted towards the unit, firing his rifle, dropping 2 more commandos. Petrov was right behind him. They reached the containment unit, its surface cold and alien. "What now, 6?" Petrov asked, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. "We can't just leave this thing." "We secure it," Art said, his mind racing. "And we make damn sure Thorne knows what he sent us after." As they fought their way to the control panel, Art's eyes caught a series of schematics tacked to a nearby corkboard. Diagrams of DNA sequences, strange cellular structures, and mathematical equations that looked like they belonged in a physics textbook. And at the bottom, a chilling phrase translated from Russian, "Project Prometheus, the spark of a new age." This wasn't just a weapon. It was an attempt to rewrite the rules of life itself. And Art Vance, a ghost in a war the world would deny, had just found its heart.